Star Wars, the expanded universe. A universe so vast that has over 17,000 characters from various different eras, from Dawn of the Jedi to the Old Republic, to the prequels all the way to the Legacy era. This is the tale of over 17,000 characters throughout the Star Wars universe. This is our first step to a much larger world that exists in the Star Wars universe. This is the story beyond the movies. This is the story of the Star Wars expanded universe. A universe loved by many. A universe that helped shape what this franchise is today. This is their story.
Hello everyone, this will officially conclude all the novels that I showed you at the beginning of the year that I was planning on reviewing, and that is Choices of One. Written by Timothy Zahn. This is one of the last novels that Timothy Zahn wrote for in the original expanded universe. And, well, I'll be reviewing Scoundrels at another time. Maybe sometime next year, who knows. If you're familiar with the prequel to this book, which is its predecessor, Allegiance, you will want to read that first because this is a sequel to that. Unlike Allegiance, on the other hand, this does a better job, even though Allegiance was great, of focusing on Luke, Han, Leia, the Stormtroopers, Mara Jade. Well, of course, this is more about Mara Jade than all the other characters. But any story that features Mara Jade, which there's very little of those, before she meets Luke Skywalker, in the era of the Empire, the Thrawn trilogy, it's one of the rare stories they have. Very few of them exist. And it's nice to actually see, Mara Jade before she meets Luke Skywalker, and also to see the Empire from a different perspective, because unfortunately most Star Wars novels don't show you, the other side of the war. They only show you the rebellion. They don't show you that the rebellion, there's some pretty bad people that exist in there. And this book actually does that. And the deserters who last book, deserted the Empire, they still, enforce their laws. They're essentially vigilantes. But in this book, this also is the first, and correct me if I'm wrong, meeting of Thrawn and Pelvian. Even though this is not the earliest you see Pelvian in the timeline, this is the first time you see these two meeting. And this also sets things up for later in the timeline on, Thrawn's vision for the Empire versus the Emperor. Now, I think that every character was well written in this. Timothy Zahn does a great job of handling characters in his books when every character gets their fair share of screen time. It's not just like a lot of other authors, which I'll talk about when I talk about the Bantam era versus Del Raid, in the future. Timothy Zahn does a great job of balancing that out. And this feels like this actually takes place during the time between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Now, there's a fuck ton of those stories, but regarding characters like Mara Jade and seeing things from more of the Imperial's point of view, there's not that many of those. And I really wish this was a wasted opportunity, that we had more stories that show things from the Empire's perspective. Because war is a gray area. There's no good, there's no evil. Everyone could be good and everyone could be bad. This novel actually does a good job to present this. And it's really cool, to see Thrawn, in this book. And I really love, the ending for this as well. Basically, this explains how Han, how Han became part of the rebellion. This is explained in this book, because he hasn't become official a part of it until this. Now, what I would rank this book, I would give this a good rating. It's not one of Zahn's best books. I think Allegiance is better, in my opinion, than Choices of One. But it's a really good book if you're a Mara Jade fan and you want more stories with this character, because many people were upset after she was killed off and sacrificed, and they wouldn't get any more stories with this character. Well, Allegiance and Choices of One was a chance to have more and more Jade stories, actually. And it was a really good story. I don't recommend reading this unless you read Allegiance, because the main characters, I'm sorry, there's so many characters in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. I'm trying to think at the moment. Oh, man. There's so many characters. I think his name is Len Rune. Len Rune, I believe that's his name. Len Lune. I'm sorry, there's so many characters. I can't remember all of them. Len Lune and his friends, they've been with him the entire time, and it's cool to see what a stormtrooper is really like, beneath the armor, which this and Allegiance does well. Now, I recommend that you pick this book up and read it after you read Allegiance. It's a really good read, and it's a really good story, and it's also one of the rare stories that exists in the EU where it features Mara Jade when she's the Emperor's hand. When there's not... This is only 2 stories I can think of. She's the Emperor's hand. There's might be more. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's a massive universe out there, and I'm bound to make some errors. But there aren't many stories featuring Mara Jade as the Emperor's hand. And it's a real treat to see what she was like as the Emperor's hand in these 2 books. Choices of One, highly recommend for everyone. And I have one more novel I'm going to review that will conclude my second season of my show. After that, it's primarily going to be the prequels. But I'm going to tell you how my 3rd season is going to work and how it's going to happen. I'll explain that when the New Year's are over. So one more review after this before I go on a temporarily hiatus. Anyway, everyone, may the Force be with you, and Happy New Year's. Peace out.